Okay, now let's go into a bit of theory regarding Tomcats. So why do we need Tomcats, right? When developers write applications, when they write source codes and build scripts and unit test cases, they commit all these things to Git, right? Before pushing them up in the cloud, right? That's the remote repository, right? The remote repository could be in the form of maybe GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, right? But we are familiar with GitHub, right? So the developers will push all these things there. So when the developer pushes all these things there, so what happens afterwards? What happens is that what has been pushed into GitHub, right? What has been pushed into GitHub, we need to do a build, okay? They've just sent in codes, right? Which is human readable, right? But depending on the language, for example, when you're looking at Java, a Java-based application, they've written source codes and all of that for that, and they commit to GitHub. So what DevOps engineers will do will be to do the build, right? So those items that have been committed to GitHub will need to be cloned, right? They'll be cloned into Maven. That is why when we are installing Maven, apart from the app itself that we are installing, we're also installing Git, right? Because with Git, we'll be able to do a clone from where the codes were committed, right? So we do a clone into Maven. So in Maven, we are able to do a build, right? In Maven, we are able to do a build, right, of a Java-based application. Now, the process of doing this build is that some things happen within the system, right? Now, the Java-based application that has been provided, right, by the developers, those applications, once they get on the Java system, right, they are Java-based language. But does the system understand what is being written? No, the Java virtual machine will not understand, okay, because it's in Java language. So the language the Java virtual machine understands is the language of binary numbers, right, put together. So there is need for a Java compiler to help to do the interpretation and tell the machine that, oh, this thing that this guy is saying in this language means this in these numbers, right? So the Java C, Java compiler, right? Now, does the interpretation. But the truth is, do we really see all of these things, right? It is going to happen during the build process, right? Now, the first thing in the build process is that we look at the most important command that you need. And that command is mvn package. Once you do mvn package, a build will be done. Now, this build that is done will, before the build is completed, 4 steps in total would have been completed. Now, the first step is validation, right? System is trying to validate all the stuff that has been provided, like the source code, the raw codes, the build script, that's the pom.xml file, and the unit test cases, right? Because for every code, for every line of code that is written by the developer, a unit test case, right, is expected. A unit test case is expected. Although, usually, in most cases, you don't get 100%, but the higher, the better for good code quality, right? The higher, the better. If you are looking at around 80 something, right? Because even the default code coverage expected by SonarQube is set at 80. That's the default, right? That's SonarWay. So now that we won't bother much on that, we are looking at the build process and the deployment process. Now, once we do our build, we say validation happens, compilation happens, then testing happens. Testing of what? Those unit test cases that have been provided. If there are no unit test cases, there will be nothing to test, right? Okay, now finally, the MVM package itself, right, will now be done, which will now deliver a target, right? We deliver a target in form of package. So within the target, we'll see some things there. We'll find out that we have the depending, it could be the .jar, right? The .war or .ear, right? So now, do we really need Tomcat in all situations? No. So if it is a Java only application, we do not need Tomcat, right? If it's just a Java-based application, which will generate a .jar tag, right? So how do you know a Java only application? It ends in .jar. That's Java archive, JAR. So a Java only application will end in .jar. And what can we do with a .jar application? We can deploy right there within the system, right? We can deploy within the system. So that's for .jar, within the Maven system, right? By entering this command, Java space -jar space the name of the file, the .jar file, right? That is within the target directory. So we need to specify that. But to do that, we need to ensure that we are within the directory, the target directory. Otherwise, we need to specify it in a different way, okay? So now that we have looked at that, there's another form of application that we have when it comes to Maven builds, and that is the .war, the .war file. The .war file means .web archive, right? Web archive, WAR, WAR, right? Now, the .war file is a Java-based application, but has a web component, has the HTML component, right? That makes it a web-based application, right? So for web-based applications, how can we deploy them? Can we deploy them within Maven? No, we cannot, because of the component of web that is in it. So we'll be thinking of using a web server, an app server, and all of those good things, right? Because we want this thing to show on a website, okay? So because we want it to show on a website, we'll be using either Tomcat or JBoss to do the deployment, okay? So just like Tomcat, where we deploy directly to web apps, okay? For JBoss, we need to deploy into a directory called deployment, right? Within the home directory of JBoss, right? So that is important that we note. So the reason why we are using Tomcat is that Tomcat is able to deploy for web-based applications. But is it only Tomcat that can do this? No, JBoss can also do it, right? But Tomcat can do just web application, while JBoss can do web application and something else we've not discussed. That's the enterprise application. Now that takes us back to Maven. We've discussed how to do the build, and we've talked about the kind of the projects we can have, right? We can have a .jar, right? The Java only, a .war web application, right? And the .ear, right? Ear, EAR, .ear, which stands for Enterprise Archive, right? So that's the third option we can have. So what makes the Enterprise Archive really different from the Web Archive? So the Enterprise Archive, from the way the name sounds, you're looking at, when you say enterprise, you got organizations, right? Big organizations, with different modules, right? The ERP in organizations, right? Different departments working on different things. So when we say here, you're looking at enterprise. So you're looking at it from the point of view of the number of modules, right? Module one, maybe if you look at a banking application, for example, you can see that on the banking application, you'll have a place where the regular place where you can just view bank's products and all of that. You have another area where you can log into an area where maybe for certain projects within the bank, right? Different modules, right, within the application. So when you have such, you are looking at a .ear project, right? The .ear application. So now, looking at all these things we have even said, do we handle them differently, right? We actually handle them the same way. How do we do their build? We build the same way, but we must ensure that when we want to do the build, we must be resident in the directory, right? That we are doing the build for. Not that we want to do a build and we are in a different directory. We have to be resident in the directory. And how do we ensure that this is always enforced? We should always make sure we see our pom.xml file. We must always be able to see it, because even when we are working with an enterprise application that has multiple modules, the pom.xml is still visible to us, right? It is still there. There's a parent pom file that it will have, right? So we must make sure we can see the pom.xml file before we run our mvn clean, mvn target, mvn clean, and mvn package, right? So we must always ensure we see the pom.xml file. That is going to really guide us, right, into just making sure we are building making the right build. Okay, that's on that. I'm not sure if I answered the question correctly. Hello?
Yes, you did. Thank you. Yes, you did. Thank you.
Okay. Is there any other question we can look into?
Yes, please.
Yes. Okay. Okay, Alex, go ahead.
Okay. So I just want to ask, so when you you are deploying with Maven, you're just going to say java to deploy if it's a Java. So if for instance it's a web file or it's like an enterprise file, how do we now deploy with Tomcat? Because that's what I don't understand. Like, how do we deploy with Tomcat?
Okay, great. We can do something, right? I'll show how we'll deploy, but we won't deploy anything, right? But it's important I show it. But also for the purpose of this session, since deployment from Maven is what we are looking at, what we can do is that we can create a file, right? But we won't see it on the website. We'll create a file inside, let's assume, let me see, I think I have my Maven somewhere here. Okay, I think that's the right thing to do. We'll do a deployment, but it's not going to be a a real file, right? So let's just do something. Let me see. I think I have my Maven on. Maven. I think I saw something there. Okay, let me just come and open the session. So we'll do a deployment. In the course of doing this deployment, we'll try to, or I think it's important we look at how to do server-to-server transfers, right? So, because that's the skill we need for deployment. So let me come here and pick out something. Maven, okay, it's running. Okay, so let me copy this public IP address. I want to copy this public IP address. I want to specify username. This is to -user. I want to go to advanced SSH settings to pick my key. Okay. Okay. Now this is Maven. So I have Maven here. Rename Maven. Right. I have Maven. I have Tomcat. Oh, I want to do that. I have Tomcat here. Tomcat. Tomcat. Okay. I have Maven. I have Tomcat. Okay. So now remember we talked about the directory where we do deployment. Remember the last time we were saying the website, the directory where deployments are done is /opt, right? Now we have Tomcat 10, Tomcat 10 / what else do we have? We have web apps. This is where we do our deployments. So let's see what we have in there, right? Remember this directory. So if we want to do deployments, this is where we do our deployment, okay? So looking at this, you see that this is a server, Tomcat server, and this is another server, Maven server, okay? So let's say, let's just assume that this is, let me cd to, let's see what we have here. I think we have projects. Let's cd to projects. Let's cd to projects. Okay. While we are here, I want to do something. I want to rm sudo rm-rv. Let me just taking this out. Okay. Okay. So I have this. So let's say this is our, we are just assuming, let's assume this is our target directory, right? And this is supposed to be a .war file. You can say you can say, let's call it tutorial .war. Let's say this is the name of the file, right? So this is the file we want. So, you know, it's really an empty file, right? We just want to use it for an example. So we've touched this file. So let's say these are target directory, right? And we have this .war. And this .war is what we want to deploy, okay? So since this is what we want to deploy, we want to deploy from Maven to Tomcat, right? You see, web apps, what do we have there? We have nothing. Let's see. Let's see what we have. We don't have any .war or whatever there, right? So this is all we have here. So what we'll do is, we have our .war file, right? So to do a deployment, we want to do server to server transfer. So how do we do it? What it means is I want to copy from this server. It's just a simple exercise. I want to copy from Maven to this location, this web apps, right, in the other server. So this is like a server to server transfer. If, for example, let's say we want to copy from here to somewhere, right? We can do regular CP, right? We say, let's say this is what we want to copy, right? This is how we do regular copy. So we can say we want to copy it and put it in the same location, or even put it in a different directory. Let's say we want to put it in home of EC2 user, right? You can say /home / EC2-user. Let's say this is what we want to do, right? This regular copying, right? And we even want to call it a different name. Just call it test copy. This is what we do if we are copying, right? We've copied this file. So if we go home, are we going to see test copy? CD, ls. Yes, we see test copy, right? Because we copied to this location. But this time around, we are not doing simple copy. We are doing from server to server. So what command do we use? We use the SCP command, secure copy command. But I like to use this to remember it. I say SCP is server copy, right? Server to server copy, right? So that way I remember it. It's SCP command. So I want to go back to where I was, right? CD dash takes me back, right? I'm back in project. So I can see my file. This is what I want to transfer. Now, there are two ways I can do this transfer, okay? I can either use a key or use password, okay? But before I can use password, because in real life, only passwords will really work, right? Because how many people will be EC2 user at the organization, right? You would have been given a password, assigned a password and all of that. But for the purpose of this session, we'll try using the two methods. We'll use the key and we'll also use the password. Now, to use the key, what are we going to do? So I want to open Git bash here because the thing is, anytime you want to use a key to copy something, right? The key must be resident in the directory where you are copying from. For example, I want to copy from this project directory. I must have the key in this project directory. And whose key am I talking about? I'm not talking about Maven's key. I'm talking about Tomcat's key. Because the thing is, it's just like this. You want somebody to deliver something to your house. You called your friend, oh, I need you to deliver that package. Put it on the table. No, not on the table. Take it to the room and keep it in the wardrobe, right? You are giving specific instruction. The web apps, the location where you want it to put is like the wardrobe of one of the rooms, right? So you are giving an instruction. So can this person just bring the thing and get into your house without having the key to your house? No. So Maven wants to take something to Tomcat's house. So Maven definitely needs to have Tomcat's key to be able to do that. To be able to drop something in his house, he needs to have Tomcat's key or password. But this time around, we want to use the key at first, right? And good news for me, my own keys are within my, let me see, they are, because for almost all of us, when we are creating a key, it goes to our downloads of our local computer. The best way I can reach my download is using Git bash. I'm not sure why I'm unable to use mobile extend to access my local computer. So for the purpose of this, I want to do this. I want to come in here. I want to go to mobile Git bash, right? This is my Git bash. Git bash by default shows me my personal computer, right? If I come here and I say ls, shows me everything I have on my computer, right? All these nice things on my personal computer. So I want to do something. I know where it is, right? I know it's in downloads. Let me clear this. I know it's in downloads. I want to cd into downloads, right? Downloads, right? Downloads of my computer. I'm in downloads of my computer, right? This is my personal computer, not the server, not any of the servers. So what I want to do here, I'm looking for a key, but I know the key name. In case I do not know, let me even say the key ends in .pen, right? I want the system to list everything ending in .pen. So to do that, I must put wildcard, right, in front. So once I put this wildcard in front, it tells me anything ending in .pen should be listed, right? So I want to do this. So I did this and I found all these beautiful keys. But I know the key that pertains to that house is ademola.pen, right? So I want to transfer this key. But what do we notice? We notice that I'm right in here, right? I'm right in here where the key is. So I want to do a server. We are trying to test something now. Right now, this is a server, right? I want to transfer from my personal server to Maven server. I want to transfer key there. What I want to transfer is key. I want to use key to transfer key. So let's see how interesting that could be. Remember, to copy, server copy, SCP, secure copy, right? But I like to say server copy. Say server copy, I pass this -I to ignore case sensitivity. I know the name of my key, ademola.pen, right? You see, this, right, will help me transfer the key, right? Because that Maven server itself is ademola.pen. That is the key to that Maven server. That is why ademola.pen is specified here. Okay? Ademola.pen is specified here because the key to that server that I'm transferring this thing to, Maven, is also this ademola.pen. Okay? Now, I've entered this. What do I want to transfer? Remember, it's key we are looking for, right? I want to specify ademola.pen again. .pen, right? That's what we want to transfer. The first ademola.pen is the key to the house that I'm going to, right? And this second ademola.pen is the file I want to transfer itself. Now, what do I want to transfer this file to? I want to transfer this file to one EC2 user somewhere, dash user. Transfer this file to one EC2 user that lives where? That lives at a public IP address. Let me go and get the public IP address. See, this is the way we remember it, right? I say call if config, right? Over there, .co, sorry. If config.co. Okay, so this is the public IP address of Maven, right? The guy that wants the key, the guy that want to deliver the key to, right? And coincidentally, is the same key that we are using to open, right? So let's do that. Mobile extend, okay, git bash. Okay, so we want to specify the address, right? This house or this apartment within this building, right? Let's put it that way. EC2 user, like the apartment within the building, okay? Now, we want to say, where do we want this thing to go? Then we'll put this column. Then we'll specify the absolute part of where we want it to go. So if you come back here to our Maven, remember, I did this. I wanted to get an absolute part. Don't want to stress myself, PWD. It gave me the absolute part. Then I come here, right? I come to git bash. This way you can be sure that nothing wrong can happen to your key, okay? So I want to come here and paste this here, okay? So let's look at the command again. SCP-I, because I'm using key. Otherwise, this wouldn't have been necessary. This 2-I ademola.pem, this 2 wouldn't have been necessary because I could have as well used a password, right, to get in. So I come in here, I specify this is what I want to transfer, right? This is what I want to transfer. It's just looking same. But when we are doing deployment, you'll see that it will look good. Now, where am I transferring? Who am I transferring to? EC2 users. We are transferring to EC2 users apartment within this condo building, right? And we can say, okay, this is colon, we want to specify where. This is where we are sending it to. So what do we need to do? Just press enter. It's gone, right? But the reason why it went straight away without prompting maybe yes or no, whatever, is because I've transferred to that place before, okay? So it already recognizes their address, okay? So the next time, maybe if you are doing it for the first time, it will ask you a question. Are you sure you want to do this? Because this is not a recognized location or something, some gibberish like that. Anyway, so now that we have this, we can go and check. Remember, when we checked our Maven, what do we see there? Do we see anything? We only saw tutorial, right? Tutorial.war. So what do we want to do now? We want to do ls. Now we have ademola.pem. This is the key. So we've done a server to server transfer. So now, how is this different from what we do with Maven to Tomcat? It's the same. It's actually the same. And the good news is, you see this key.pem, right? I'm lucky I'm not using different keys for different, I would have been racking my head, right? So this ademola.pem key is the same key that is used for Tomcat. So it's still the same, it's like a master key. So any key will work here now, right? Am I not so lucky? So now that we have this, to proceed with this, okay, when we try to transfer without changing the permissions, right? Let's see the permissions. For this, you can see read write is a 644 permission, right? So if you look at this now, a 644 permission, if we try transferring, we could get an error that is not saved, that we should change, we should change the permission, right? So ordinarily, we want to change permission to 400, right? To transfer to the other server. But let's see if it tells us to do it, we'll come back to do it. It doesn't take us time, okay? So we could have done it now, but I just want us to see, just in case we are doing this alone and we encounter such, we know that it is normal, okay? So now, where do I want to transfer to? I want to transfer to this guy, right? And I know where I want to transfer. I want to put it inside here, right? To complete the deployment. So I want to say, let me get the IP address for this guy. For if config.co. Okay, if I do this, right, I have an IP address there. So this is the public IP address for the Tomcat that I'm deploying to. So what do I need to do? All I need to do is simple, right? I want to do my SCP, secure copy, server copy, whichever way will make us remember. So I want to send it with a key, right? Because I'm sending with a key, I say -i, right? I want to specify the key name. I know the key name. That's the master key, right? Now, what do I want to transfer? Unlike the other time, where we repeated key.pem twice, ademola.pem twice, this time around, we are transferring tutorial.war, right? So we put a space. Who are we sending it to? Whose house? EC2 user's house. EC2-user's house that lives at where? At this address, at this public IP address. Okay, we want to specify that. Now, what are we where are we sending it to? Okay, where are we sending it to? We can say we are sending it to, let's go and copy it. I know it offhand, but I just want to copy. Where do we have it? PWD, I think I did it somewhere, /opt/Tomcat10/web apps, right? We've copied, right? Then we'll come here and paste it. So we've pasted that. So let's see everything on a single line. Okay, you see? So this is what we are sending. We are using this key, right, to send this file to this person that lives at this address and want to put it inside this place, okay? So if you do this, let's see what we get. You see, because I've never sent anything to this guy, it's asking this question, right? So I will say yes, and we are likely going to get bounced, right? You see, permissions is permission 644 for this are too open. Private key will be ignored. Permission denied. So this is what I anticipated, right? And that's why we talked about it up there. So now what do we want to do? We want to do a show mode, right? We want to change mode for that file. We want to call it, because right now the mode is 644. So that's read and write for the user, read for the group of the user, and read for others. So because it's a file, it's going across servers, right? So it wants to keep it secret, right? So it doesn't want it to be maybe hacked or whatever it is. So we want change mode to 400, right? So it's going to be read only permission for the user and no rights for any other person, okay? So show mode, want to change the mode of this file, tutorial, no, not that, sorry. Ademola.pem. So that's a file that we are changing the mode for. That's the key. Okay. So we've done this. Now, what do we need to do? We just need to pull that command. Remember this command that we try to use that we got that error. So let's do it again. So you see, it went with ease. Now we have done a deployment using key. Okay. So let's see that. Let's check out the deployment. Remember when we did ls the last time, what did we see? We saw all these directories, right? But when we do ls now, we'll see what we just transferred. You can see tutorial.wa. Now, when you do your real deployment, I want you to bear this in mind. When you do your real deployment, because it contains several files, real snapshots, right? You won't see just tutorial.wa. It would have extracted what you have in the .wa and put a directory here. You understand? Ordinarily, we should have another directory here called tutorial as well, okay, which is extracted. So, and that is what we go on Tomcat. And when we click on, let's see, I think we still have that Tomcat open, okay? So let's assume that that was real deployment, right? Let's assume it was a real world deployment. So when we come to manager, right? That exercise we did, let's expand this a bit. Just want to be able to access, or let me move this. Okay, let's expand it now. So now that we have this, if it was a real deployment we did, a real .wa file, what we'll see here, we'll see a new row, and we'll have something here. And what will it be called? It's going to be called tutorial, not the .wa. Because when you deploy a .wa file to that place, it extracts it into a directory called without the .wa. So there will be two items there, the .wa file and the directory without the .wa. Okay, so that is what gets deployed. And once you click, right, once you click this, it will just take you to the web page of what was deployed. Okay, so now the web apps You know, we don't just, the app server, right? We don't just use that. We need to use the Nginx, the web server. That is what visitors to the website will interact with to access what is on the app server, right? It's just like a replication. Whatever we deploy here, we get seen by visitors through the web server. Now, we have successfully deployed, right, using a key. But in real life, are we going to be using key? Not likely. It is most likely that we are going to be using password, because as a user in the organization, you'll be given a password to access your system. How many people will be easy to use? It's just going to be one person, right? So if you are in that situation, right, you will not be using a key. So what you'll be using most of the times will be the password. How do we use the password? It's also very simple, right? But during this session, we'll be doing some things that ordinarily are things that will be done once in the lifetime, once in one's lifetime in the organization, right? For example, let's say this is a new organization, right? And we have employees coming in and we created users, we give them passwords. If we create users and give them passwords, will they be able to access the account? They won't be able to access the account until we do password authentication. It is the password authentication that allows users to be able to use password to log into the account. Even with password, without authentication being done, there will be no way to use the password. Okay, I think this is a new server we created, right? So let's do something just to establish some things, right? So let's say we want to cd, we can even do it from here, it's okay. Can sudo, we want to add a user. No, we are not adding a user. We want to assign a password to EC2, right? This password is what we want to use to do our server to Java transfer. We want to see what happens if we just assign a password, right? And see whether it will work without authentication. So let's see, sudo, I want to say passwd, I want to add a password, right? To who? To EC2-user. To EC2-user, right? I want to add a password, sudo passwd EC2-user. Okay, it's asking for a password. I enter a password. Okay, I re-enter it. Okay, now I've created a password for this user. Now let's see what happens, right? Let's see what happens. We want to deploy from Maven to Tomcat using password this time. Now we are still within the same directory. Okay, so we are still within the same directory. I think we should clear this right now. Let's clear this so we can have some sanity. Let's ls. So these are the things we have. What do we want to use to transfer now? We want to use our password, right? Why did we create a password for EC2-user? We want Maven to be able to drop something there, but Maven will need the password. That's access to Tomcat server, right? That's why that password is required. The password we generated was for Tomcat, right? You can see, because we want to put something in Tomcat's house, okay? So what do we do to get that done? To get that done, okay, to get that done, we want to do something. We want to use SCP, right? This time around, we are not using key. So what happens? The -i space ademola.pem is not relevant again, right? It's easier for us. It's getting easier, right? So now all we need to specify is what is it we are transferring? We are transferring this, okay? This is what we are transferring. Okay, this is what we are transferring. We are transferring tutorial.wa, right? So we space this and say, who are we transferring to? We are transferring to EC2-user that lives at what address? Let's go and get the public IP address. That lives at what address? So we have the public IP address. So I want to come and paste that public IP address here. Okay. Now that I've done this, I want to put a column and say, oh, where am I putting this? I'm putting it in /opt/tomcat cat10/web apps. But because /web apps, but because I know that there's something already there and I do not want to cause confusion, I want to put tutorial. I want this thing to go there with a different name. I want to call it tutorial 2. So that what happened? This thing is already there. And maybe that's why tutorial 2.wa, right? Let me just say this. Tutorial 2.wa. Okay. So this is what we have. So if we do this, we are going to encounter a problem. Okay. And the problem is it won't go through because the password has not been authenticated. Right? So you can see SCP, secure copy, or server to copy, if you're like me. What are we transferring? Tutorial.wa to who? EC2 user, EC2-user that lives at what address? This public IP address, and we specify the paths where we want it to go. /opt/tomcat/web apps. The reason why we put this one is that we want it to go as this name, right? We don't want it to go as tutorial. We want to get there as tutorial. We want it to arrive as its destination as tutorial 2.wa, okay? So if I enter, you're likely going to have problems. You see, it's saying, no way, permission denied. The reason why we are getting this permission denied is because we had not authenticated this server. We've not done password authentication. We've got new employees, we've given them password, but there's still something we need to do. Once in the lifetime of a server, right? Server you are giving people access to, you must do this once in the lifetime of the server, except if the organization changes the decision that, oh, we don't want anybody using key again, okay? Using password again, okay? So to do our password authentication, what do we need to do? We need to go to a directory called /etc, right? Let's ls, see a whole lot of stuff. Within this directory, we want to go to, this is something you are even familiar with, want to cd into another directory, subdirectory here, is here somewhere. Don't look for it. SSH, right? By the time we ls this, we see some things we are familiar with. So this is where we are coming to. We are coming to this file. We want to modify this file, okay? So let me do something. I want to enter pwd, so I will refresh our memory to know that we are familiar with this location, right? We are familiar with this location. So we want to do this, right? We want to do this. This is where I'm going, right? I want to come here / and paste this, right? Remember, you VI into /etc/ssh/sshd-config, right? That is where we do our password authentication, right? So I come in here. Oh, I didn't put sudo. Let me exit. Okay, so I want to put sudo because this is a root directory, right? So I need sudo to work here. Okay, so sudo. Now I want to go to a file called authentication. Okay, so let's just scroll down, go to password authentication. Okay, I think I see it. You see this line? This line is where we are going to disable tunneled clear text password, change to no here. We do not intend to disable, we want to enable. So we want to change from no to yes. So what we do, I to get into the insert mode, okay? I to get to the insert mode, then we'll come here and change no to yes, okay? So once we do this, we want to save column WQ, enter. So now that we've saved this file, are we going to be able to still be able to do our transfer? No, we'll not be able to do it, but let's see. Let's see for ourselves, right? We'll still get the same permission denied. Still says permission, but we've changed it, yes, right? So what's the problem? Problem is something else is required to be done. We need to restart SSHD service, okay? You know, we've done a modification here. We need to restart SSHD service. So what we have here is that we want to do a restart of the SSHD service, okay? So we run this. So with this exercise that we've done, if we try to use the password, it will now work, right? The first thing was that we created a password, right? Then the next thing was that we went to set up password authentication. Then we proceeded to doing a restart of the SSHD service. Okay, now let's go back to this place and complete our transfer using, so let's cd into, what's the name of the file? Let me ls, can't remember the name of the file directory. Okay, I think it's in projects, right? cd into projects, ls, just want to be sure. Okay, this is the right place. Now that we are here, we want to transfer, right? We want to transfer using SCP, right? We agreed that we just need to specify the name of the file, right? I want to specify the user, ec2-user. Then we want to say the guy lives at that address, at what IP address? Let's get the IP address of Tomcat. Call if config.co. Call if config.co. So we want to copy this, right? So when we copy this, we'll come in here, right? We want to paste it here. This is the address. Then we specify where it's going. It's going to /opt/tomcat10, right? /opt/tomcat10/web apps. Would have just clicked enter for it to go through. But because we want it to appear as a different name, we want to specify the name we want it to appear as. We want to call it tutorial2.war. So this is the name is going as. So if we enter now, it's asking for password. You see, unlike the previous attempts, it didn't ask for password. It just showed us connection lost. Now we need to enter a password. I know the password. See, it's gone. Okay. So if we come here now and we check web apps /opt, want to cd into /opt/tomcat10 /web apps. Okay, let's see what we have. Let's ls. You see, this is the one we deployed using a key, and this is the one we deployed using the password. So this is what the deployment process covers, right? However, let's not forget that after we look at Maven, then we can look at putting our artifacts in the artifact tree, right? We could either deploy directly from Maven to Tomcat, or we can choose to deploy using Nexus, right? Your deployment with Nexus is going to be different from this. I think that one is even easier, right? Because all you need is to copy a link, right? And when you copy the link, you just use wget, right? The same way, if you remember, let's look at our script here. Let's see how we install Tomcat. Just some brief refresher so that when we come across that, when we are doing deployment from Nexus, we'll understand why, right? So if you are deploying from Nexus, all you need to do is to specify wget and copy the link of the remote repository that's on Nexus, right? That we are deploying. You copy that, you put this, and you specify that. You go to the directory where you want to deploy to. Remember, when we're installing here, we came to /opt directory, right? That's one of the first things we did. Came in here, right? So if you want to deploy in web apps, all you need to do is to go into web apps and run this command, wget, very easy, right? And copy the Nexus, link to the Nexus remote repository for the application you want to deploy. I just paste it, enter, deployment done.